Hello everyone, it's Dylan from Yu-Gi-Oh! Everything, and welcome back to another Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS discussion video. So yesterday, I kind of laid out a roadmap, all speculation on everything VRAINS, some important dates to look forward to, like when new openings might be announced for 2019, since 2019 most likely is the final full calendar year for VRAINS. We probably will get an announcement in a few months that Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS is coming to an end, I'd assume in 2020, but in today's video, I want to really in-depth go into pendulum summoning in Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. If you guys are unaware, pendulum summoning is the only summoning mechanic that we have yet to see in the VRAINS anime. We just saw XZ summoning in episode 82. Episode 83, by the way, did come out. It was apparently like 90% a recap. I myself have yet to see it. Crunchyroll is not subbing it until January 9th because there is another break between January 2nd and January 9th. So there's no episode January 2nd, and we're not going to get subs via Crunchyroll until January 9th, but I did hear that the episode was pretty much a recap, so I probably won't even do a review on the episode. Just wanted to let you guys know, because I did have a lot of people asking me about episode 83 in my last video. So, let's get right into it. I want to talk about pendulum summoning. I want to also talk a little bit about the extra deck mechanics and how I feel like the implementation of the extra deck mechanics have not been great. I personally think the extra deck mechanic implementation has been a little poor, actually, and I'm going to get into that. But before I begin, I do want to say that we do have the booster pack name for April's booster pack. It's coming out April 13th or 14th. I said in my last video that the pack name had yet to be announced. I was completely wrong. Thank you to the dozens of people who told me that the pack name is called Rising Rampage. So will Rising Rampage have a pendulum monster on the cover? We will have to wait and see, but if that is the case, expect a pendulum monster in like late March, early April, which will be around the 96s, 97s, that area. So here are my thoughts on pendulum summoning in VRAINS. Now, I did a whole video back, I think it's when episode 8 was airing, saying that pendulums are not going to be in VRAINS, in my opinion, and this is why. And the video, I'm not going to pretend like the video doesn't exist. I made a video, I made an early prediction, and my reasoning for it was, we had episode 6, Yusaku joined the Duel Club. It might have been to do research on Aoi Zaizen. I'm not 100% sure what circumstances he joined the Duel Club, or maybe he was forced into it by Naoki. That actually might have been, that's actually a little more believable. But he's in this Duel Club, and the leader of the Duel Club, remember, this is a Duel Club, a club that is supposed to know everything, obviously, about dueling, and the leader of the Duel Club shows the board. And now the official board for the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game with link formats always shows the pendulum markers, and with link formats, the new thing with pendulum markers is it's in the back row. So the leftmost spell and trap zone and the rightmost spell and trap zone are now where the pendulum markers are. They're not outside of the board like they used to be. And when he shows us this, there are no pendulum markers in the, Master Duel setup or in the Speed Duel setup. First of all, there's no way pendulums will work in Speed Duels. If we're going to see pendulums, there is no way that they are feasible in Speed Duels. You start with 4 cards. You only have 3 main monster zones and spell and trap zones. And so if you set the scales, you only have 1 zone left. And if you set the scales, you only have 2 cards left in your hand. So are they both going to be pendulum? I guess it's plausible, obviously, but I personally do not see pendulums working at all in Speed Duels. I think it's very unrealistic, and if we're going to see pendulums, I think the chances are that we will see them in the Master Duels. Now this, if we do see pendulums, which I'm 50-50 I'm 50-50 on. I think there's about a 50% chance that we will see pendulums. I'm not nearly as confident as I was for XZ summoning. When Synchro summoning was announced, I was 100% confident that XZ summoning was coming to Yu-Gi-Oh! VRAINS. It just made sense. And now that we've had XZ summoning, pendulum is next on the cards. And I'm not 100% sure we will see pendulum, only because pendulum summoning is the only extra deck mechanic that requires more than one of those cards to be utilized effectively. You need 2 pendulum monsters to set the scales, and then you need another pendulum monster to actually summon and pendulum summon. I mean, I guess you don't need another Pendulum monster, but you at least need 2 to set the scales. Whereas Synchro, you only need 1, Xyz, you only need 1, and those are also extra deck. Pendulum summoning initially comes from the main deck. So I feel like if we're gonna see Pendulums, it would have to be a brand new character. Otherwise, it just doesn't make any sense that the Dueling Club, first of all, there would be a little bit of a continuity error that the Dueling Club didn't show the Pendulum scales and acted like Pendulum markers were not a thing, when in every single official art of the Yu-Gi-Oh board, you're gonna see a Pendulum marker on it. So that's already a bit of a continuity error, even though this brings me on to my next point. When it comes to the extra deck summoning, I think it has been pretty poorly done. I think in Arc 5 they did it much better, where they had all the extra deck summoning in the very beginning. All the summoning methods were present from early on in the show. With VRAINS, we had to wait 70 episodes for our first Synchro. We had to wait over 80 episodes for our first Xyz. We had to wait quite a while for our first Ritual and Fusion. Where were these kind of monsters in the entirety of Season 1? They never explained it, and I feel like they've done a poor job implementing them. And furthermore, when we see a Synchro monster or we see a Fusion, everyone can start using these methods like they were here the whole time. Revolver Synchros, oh, Yusaku Fujiki, you get a Synchro. Emma Besso, you get a Synchro. Blood Shepherd, you get a Synchro. And it's like, okay, let's calm down, guys. Like, this Synchro summoning was not here the entire first season. Why all of a sudden is it here? Now, there were a few ways they could have explained it, and one of the easiest ways was through the Link VRAINS shop. The very beginning of Season 2, Episode 47, we see Brave Max wandering around, and we see all these shops where you can potentially purchase new boards, new outfits, I'd assume, and maybe even new cards and unlock new extra deck summoning. And I think that would have been a really good opportunity for them to maybe show Revolver after he Synchro summons. Revolver can have a moment where he does like a flashback or he does a quick monologue of how he was able to unlock Synchro summoning, and he has like a skill tree. Like every duelist has a skill tree, which is common in video games. I guess it would be common in this virtual reality, which in a way, Link VRAINS is just one big video game. And maybe Soul Technologies barred off Synchro Summoning and Xyz and Pendulum and all these other methods because they wanted to oppress duelists and they didn't want duelists to unlock their full potential, something Soul Technologies would 100% do, and Revolver was able to break through that firewall barrier, no pun intended on firewall, and he was able to unlock Synchro Summoning in his tree, thus he was able to get a Synchro and a Tuner monster, and all of a sudden that part of a skill tree became accessible to every duelist in Link VRAINS. That would easily explain how every duelist can Synchro summon all of a sudden. It explains how they got their Synchro monsters and why Synchros weren't around in the first season. That bug in the system, maybe it wasn't available until Link VRAINS had a whole reboot and Neo Link VRAINS came out. That would have been a really cool way for them to do it, and if they did it that way and explained it, I would have had no issue with it at all. But the way they've done it is, we don't know why these methods weren't around in Season 1. We probably never will know. And furthermore, everyone has access to them. And the most probably frustrating thing is Arc 5 did it really well, where you could see Yuzu really trying to learn how to fusion summon, Gangenzaga learning how to synchro summon. Every character is a master of summoning these extra deck monsters, which feels a little unrealistic given the circumstances of they weren't around in Season 1, at least to our knowledge. In fact, one of the best lines to support this and show how annoying it is, or at least annoying for me, is Aoi Zaizen, as Playmaker is overlaying his monster, she goes, "This isn't a Link summon?" So she clearly has no idea. The number 2 charisma duelist in the world has no idea what XZ summoning is, which leads me to believe that this was not a common summoning method. But you already know that she's going to probably get an XZs, or Soulburner will get an XZs. Now the XZs monsters are just going to flood out. So I know I just went on a much off-topic rant, but the way they have done extra deck summoning, I have not really loved. Now, given the option of no summoning methods, or minimal summoning methods like fusions and rituals, or all of the summoning methods but implemented kind of poorly, I would 100% choose all the summoning methods just implemented kind of poorly. I think when you have synchros and XZs and maybe pendulums, they just increase the unexpectedness of what a character is going to go into. They increase the drama of what's going to happen, and seeing these synchros and XZs monsters were really cool. I just wish they were explained a little better and overall implemented a little better. If you were going to use all of them, use them from the beginning so that there's no kind of and a lot of people I know have that issue too, where now everyone's using them and no one used them in season 1. It just doesn't, it feels like they kind of forced them into the show and they didn't give a great explanation. I mean, I offered one explanation they could have done using that whole point system, which they kind of abandoned after they initially showed it in episode 47. There were a few ways they could have better implemented it, so it's kind of disappointing that they didn't. But getting back on topic, I mean, you guys let me know what you think about that. I'm interested to hear from you guys regarding how you feel they've implemented all the summoning methods. Regarding Pendulums, again, I'm 50-50 on it. I'm leaning towards we probably will see them, but I think it needs to be a new character. To see like Lightning or Yusaku all of a sudden have multiple Pendulum monsters in their deck, it just wouldn't, that really wouldn't make sense. So a new character would be really cool to see use Pendulum monsters. It would make the most sense, but then again, given how they've implemented the other summoning mechanics, I don't think they really care about sense too much. So we'll see, but it will be really interesting because Pendulums, the reason that they're hurt in Link VRAINS, I'm pretty sure you obviously summon them from the main deck originally. When they're destroyed, they go to the extra deck, and you used to be able, as long as you had the scales, to summon them right from the extra deck onto the field. Now they need to be attached to a Link monster or be in that extra monster zone because you're summoning from the extra deck. So getting the Pendulums back onto the field, sorry, I know my voice keeps cutting in and out, is more difficult than it used to be. Not saying Pendulums are a dead mechanic by any means, but they're definitely slightly more difficult to utilize effectively than they were pre-Links. But yeah, and for that reason, by the way, I think that makes it more enticing to see in Yugioh VRAINS. How would Pendulums work with Links? At the end of the day, the show is supposed to show us all these different combos, how to utilize all the methods properly, and so for that reason, because Pendulums were the summoning method that probably got hit well, I don't even know if Pendulums are really an extra deck summoning method. They're kind of after they get destroyed. But because they were the summoning mechanic that a lot of people thought got hit the most and treated unfairly the most in Link formats, that's all the more reason to show them and to show how Pendulums can still be an effective and useful and viable deck in Link format. So I think we will see Pendulums. I wouldn't be surprised, though, if we didn't. Like, I would have been stunned if we never saw XZs. I'm not as confident we will see Pendulums, but you guys let me know all your thoughts regarding this topic, especially what I discussed about how the extra deck summoning mechanics have been utilized. Synchros, XZs, do you not mind them showing up out of nowhere with no explanation whatsoever? Seemingly these characters have no idea what they were, like Blue Maiden's line when Playmaker XZ summoned, but you know that these characters are all going to now start flooding with XZs, just like they flooded with fusions and synchros. Let me know all your thoughts on how you think the implementation has been handled of all of these summoning mechanics, and if you think it could have been better and how you think they could have been handled a little better, and of course, the main topic of the video, whether you think Pendulums will show up in Yugioh VRAINS. A special thank you to my Platinum tier patrons Alexa Baker, Glen McGookin, Jorge Carrillo, James Rose, and Omni Lord, and to my Diamond tier patrons Bouldergeist, Jesse Wood, and Odd Eyes Vaughn, and to my Egyptian God tier patron Syn Cloud. A huge thank you to everyone who supports me on Patreon. I cannot tell you how much it really does help me out, and a huge thank you to everyone who just watches my videos, because without you guys, I would not be able to do this. I am very excited to hear from all of you down below. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have an amazing day.